Okay, so we're gonna focus. We know that Parshas Vayechi is where Yaakov Avinu gives the blessings to the Shvatim, all the 12 tribes, and it says we see that Birchas Yosef, the bracha of Yosef, is different and more unique than any other of the brachos. So let's talk about that a little bit. It says that if we look at the bracha, it says Me'el avicha v'azreka ve'is shadai v'varacheka berchos shamayim me'ol berchos tahom revetzes tochas berchos shadai v'racham. These three, it's really, he says that from the God of your father, and with Hashem was your heart when you resisted the temptations, and he will bless you, the blessings of heaven from above, blessings of the deep below, and blessings of foundation, which Rashi translates the foundation, meaning that males and females from his tribe will both have, reproduction, and many children will come from them. And we see that his children really were the ones that really grew one of the fastest. And now also it says so basically there's three different levels. There's the level of blessings that is the highest, which is Birchos Shamayim, the heavens, which means the spiritual, and then Birchos Tachtim, which is the lowest, which means the Parnasa, the materialistic blessings, and then the foundation, which is the middle, which is children, that that his tribe shouldn't be barren. So why is it that Yaakov's giving Yosef these special blessings more than anybody else? That's number one of the questions that Nesivos Shalom was asking. Then, if we look in the end of the Torah, we see in Dvarim, at the end of Dvarim, it says that Moshe was giving the brachos to the Shvatim, to the tribes, and also it says by Moshe the same type of thing. It says Mimeged shamayim mital mitahom revetzes tochas mimeged tvos shemesh mimeged givos olam mimeged eretz maloa. So it's basically the same type of thing. He's giving the same bracha that Yaakov gave Yosef. He's giving it now to the Shevet of Yosef, the tribe of Yosef, to Yosef's children. And so it's really like we see not only Yosef himself gets the bracha, but also his offspring, his Shevet, his tribe. And then we see that when Yaakov blesses Yosef, it says Birchos avicha gavru al birchos harai, that the bracha of your father became even greater than the bracha of my parents. And Rashi explains, what does he mean by this? That that what he's now blessing Yosef is even more than Avram and Yitzchak blessed him. Okay? So why is it that Yosef gets this special bracha, right? So basically it's a different ways to ask the same questions, from the uniqueness of the bracha altogether, and from the greatness of the bracha, and the way that Moshe continues to bless it, and also the fact that it's Yaakov is even admitting or specifying that the bracha of Yosef is even greater than he got brachas from Avram Yitzchak. And then he asks another few questions, which is related. He says, if we look at the bracha it says Ben Parat Yosef, Ben Parat Aliyain, right? So Parat, when we say Ben Parat Yosef, Ben Parat Aliyain, Parat is referring to chen, which is charm and finding favor, right? So why is it that Yosef is necessarily Yosef himself, as opposed to other brothers, gets chen, gets this favor, the blessing of having favor. And then he asks, we see by the bracha of Moshe to the tribe of Yosef, we see that he's constantly using the word meged in the bracha. Meged comes to refer to sweetness, right? And why is it that he's getting that bracha of sweetness as opposed to anyone else? And it's not only that, it's not something that same language of sweetness is not usually found in any of the other brachas of all over the Torah. It's only by Yosef. So the question is why? And okay. Okay. So the Madrega of Yosef, we have to learn a little bit about the level of Yosef and where he withstood, where we know that Yosef was called, as opposed to everyone else, he was called Yosef HaTzadik, right? Everybody was tzaddikim. All the Shvatim were very unique, special people. But Yosef was the only one that was called Yosef HaTzadik. And we see that
you need a break too.
Okay. So if we look at going way back to Parsha Vayechi a few weeks ago, we see the blessing, the dreams of Yosef. Okay, if we look at the dreams of Yosef, we see that the dreams are two different dreams that really are the same thing, right? However, there is something very unique and different about them, because the first dream stating that the stalks are going to bow down to his stalk is talking about the ground, right? Low, beneath. And then the next dream of the stars bowing down to, right, and the sun, the moon, the stars bowing down to him, that's spiritual, high, as opposed to low. So we have both the materialistic, the low, and also above the spiritual, right? So we see from this that Yosef himself saw in his prophetic dreams that it wasn't just, they were bowing down, but there was something in what Yosef does and his attribute that was so special that he was zocha, he merited to be able to have this ability to be in both the realms of materialistic as well as spiritual. Okay?
Well,
So
what does that mean? What does that mean to be, that the top dog in the spiritual realm? What does that mean?
well, it means that
I mean, like you said, the stocks were represent the brothers.
bowing down to his stalk.
Making him the leader, more or less.
Right, but that both dreams had that aspect. Both dreams had that same aspect,
Okay,
right?
but what I'm saying, what was the spiritual part of it? Who's bowing
Because-
down and who's the
because
stars? And who's the moon?
Well, if God wanted to tell him, to give him a dream, to be able to show him that they're bowing down, he could have picked two different ways to do it with animals, and that everything
Right.
having to do. The fact that he picked one of them is from the below, and one of them is above. Above meaning in the shamayim, in the heavens above. That refers to spiritual.
I mean,
I think he doesn't know the actual dream. So basically, there was 12 stars, and then
does that right?
Right? That he's going to be the king. That's the same aspect. The difference is that one represents materialistic and one represents spiritual, right? Right? So therefore we see from that, but why is that? Why did Yosef merit this? Right? So the answer he brings is that it says, no, well, before he brings the actual answer, he says that we have a pasuk, Hashem b'tzion gadol v'ram hu al kol ha'amim. Hashem in Zion is great, and he's high in all the nations, right? So therefore, when we say Hashem b'tzion gadol, right, that Hashem in Zion is great, Zion happens to be the same exact gematria as Yosef. Okay? So Tzion, meaning Zion, Yosef is the same exact gematria. What does that tell us? That the midah of Yosef, the attribute of Yosef, is so great that Hashem is great in that attribute. Meaning what? Meaning that Yosef's attribute of Yesod, which is the attribute of the foundation and guarding yourself from desires, right? That is something that Hashem is the greatest, and that's the highest of all levels of any attribute. That's the highest, right? And he brings that he brought down from the Saba Kadosh Milakovitz, because they're going to Lenu, and he says, but from his grandfather he brings that it says in a pasuk in Miketz, it says Vayisapek Vayomer Simu Lechem. Right, when Yosef HaTzadik was about to cry because he was getting very emotional about his brothers, he held himself back, and then he said, "Put bread," meaning put food out on the table. And the Nesivos Shalom there in Miketz talks about. He says that whenever a person holds back, then that's like a segula for parnasa. He can get livelihood from that. What does that mean? When you hold back from something, from a desire that you want, and you don't do it, then you're already making yourself on a higher level, or you're holding back from doing something that you shouldn't be doing, or anything that you hold back from, right? And you achieve it. You accomplish it. Not just you have the intent to do it, but you come to be able to do it. And you're because of that, when you hold yourself back, you have the parnasa is going to come. So that's because it says Vayisapek, and he held back, but simulachem, and then the bread will come. So he explains, and this is really, really profound what he says over here. He says like this. He says that that when a person builds his own foundation, his midah of yesod, he builds his own foundation in the fact that he is able to be chovesh his yetzer. He is able to hold himself back, right? He's able to mamish hold himself back, right? Then he can be able to fulfill something else in his life instead. What does that mean? Because when a person comes down to this world, his neshama comes down to this world inside a body, there's a certain amount of pleasures that he's supposed to have, and there's a certain amount of troubles that he's supposed to have, right? Not more, not less. How does he change that, right? How does he make it more or less when it comes to, the troubles or pleasures? And the answer, he says, is that if I'm going to make my lot so difficult that where I am going to try my best to hold myself back from things that I shouldn't be doing, and that's going to be my avoda, that's going to be my service, then therefore that's already my troubles. And I'm taking that as my troubles, then I won't have as much troubles. However, if I do the opposite, God forbid, and I say, I want to take more pleasure, then I'm going to get, and what is left, I'm going to have troubles.
Creating more.
Right? Because I'm investing it. It's the same thing we see that, how is it fair that Shevet Levi, the tribe of Levi, didn't have any subjugation. They weren't part of the slavery, right? Whereas all the other slaves were, right? So all the Shvatim were, all the other tribes were. Thank you. So, so therefore, what do we see from this? We see that Levi decided that their avoda, their service, is going to be serving Hashem, going to be learning Torah, and they worked hard in it, and therefore that was their subjugation, that was their slavery. They're being servants to God as opposed to being servants to Paro. They chose that, okay?
But they weren't goals also.
So, but they didn't have to. They didn't have to be a slave.
I know, but they were. But did they have that like golos like what we're going through now?
Right.
That type of like obviously Vayechi Mitzrayim and Matan Torah. There was much more of Giloi in the Torah than there was whatever Torah they were learning back then. Saying obviously it wasn't Torah itself, but that there wasn't that.
Sure, it was Torah itself.
No, I know it was Torah itself, but you know, like in Galus when you learn Torah, like not all the time we're having that like Giloi, like
Okay.
they had that mentality of Galus. Still, even in the Torah, but that like
Sure, there's a mentality of Gullus, but they did. The fact is
no,
that
they were still in they
They
weren't
were
in
part of the
Mitzrayim.
nation. That's why they were still there. It's not like
No, they
they're
were
not
part
of
of,
the
but
nation.
no, I'm not saying when they left Mitzrayim, they also left Mitzrayim. Meaning, and they also went through some kind of Galus, even though they were learning Torah.
of course, absolutely,
Mm.
right.
Okay, fine. I'm just saying.
Even though they didn't
So
suffer
we didn't
like
go
the
to
other.
weren't slaves where they had to
When-
work. all
meaning
day. They were
you,
still
you
adults.
can choose. You can choose how to. It's like the Chovos HaLevavos says that you can go ahead and you can. I want to get paid a lot of money, so I'm going to do a job that's dangerous, right? So the Chovos HaLevavos says you shouldn't do that, right? It says that you have a certain amount of money that Hashem is going to give you, no matter what. It's going to be that way. So you're going to go ahead and make yourself in a way that I'm going to get more money because I'm putting myself in danger, which God doesn't want me to do, right? So therefore, I'm going to get more money, but maybe at the end of the year, I'm not going to make. So I'm going to end up making the same amount of money. It's just going to be a spread over a period of time as opposed to the first 2 months because I'm packing it in, making something that's dangerous, and then I'm going to, God forbid, hurt myself or whatever. You know what I mean? So
Wouldn't it not be also logic to think like if Hashem would hurt me, like for example, break my leg, like if I would take this job or not, I would break.
True, but we're making the choice. Meaning, just today, it happened to me just a few hours ago, which is one of the reasons why I pushed it off a half hour late this year, is because the main reason actually is because I had a bottle of wine that I had taken out, and I put it upstairs on top of my coat, and it was, this was, I don't know, yesterday. It was yesterday, right? I said I could put it aside, and then I grabbed my coat. I had to go somewhere today.
Oh,
The whole bottle of wine went all over the place, and I broke it, So yeah, it smelled good, but that's about it. That's the only enjoyment I got about it. But anyway, what I'm saying is that, yeah, I'm supposed to. It was. I could have been, that God made it that way. That I'm supposed to lose that bottle, but I also could have been more careful and put it away the way it was supposed to be, and I didn't.
Oh,
Right. So we have our choices. So Levi made their choice that no, my subjugation is going to be learn Torah.
but it's amazing that the Egyptians would allow them to do that.
Well,
They had it so in Jewish people.
that's because they ended up. What happened was it was a mindset that first Paro went and started working, and all the Egyptians started working, so they felt the Jews started working as well, and then little by little they started going away, and but Levi never did it.
Oh, so they never worked themselves into the
Exactly.
slavery.
down and it was first like
Right. Anyway, so this is something that it's really something that it's not an easy thing, but then again, what's the payoff, right? As much as it's not easy to be concerned and caring, making sure that you're guarding yourself, but in the end, you're going to get so much blessing, and you're taking away from your troubles. This is what he's saying. And we see that because of this special midah of Yosef to be able to guard himself from his desires, right? We see that he had the bracha of parat, which means chen, having favor, right? Finding favor. We see that also by Noach, right? It says Noach matza chen beinei Hashem. Noach found favor in the eyes of Hashem, and it was also he's called a tzaddik, right? Noach is called a tzaddik, and we know that tzaddik refers to a person who guards himself from, his desires, right? And that's why he gets favor. He has the blessing of favor because he guarded himself. So therefore, he finds favor in the eyes of Hashem. So too, Yosef, right? And we know that there's the way that how does sin work, right? We see something, right? Then it says ayin roa v'alev chomed b'kli masim gomrim, right? So first the eye sees, and afterwards the heart wants it, desires it, and then the hands or whatever, the feet, everything they do that thing, that desire that fills it, right? So if a person goes ahead and holds himself back, right? So everything, meaning basically all parts of his body are protected. From his head down to his toes are all protected, right? So Yosef, that the fact that he went ahead and he excelled in this attribute of holding himself back, so therefore he gets everything from head to toe, right? All levels of blessing.
I heard once that Boaz was even
In what way?
the same way as Joseph.
So
He had himself back from root.
Yeah, and
Right.
Ruth was not a Goya, and she did the bosses.
right,
She
right.
was just married.
Meaning that in that
He
aspect,
had everything. The only
right,
the ring was missing.
right, absolutely, yeah, and right, and that, but I think, meaning in that aspect alone, but Yosef was his test lasted him much longer. It was over a long period of time, and it was also in midst of the worst, the epitome of impurity, where Boaz didn't have that. Boaz was talking about only that one, one spark. And and also
And
Yosef was 17 years old, or he was very young, and Boaz was over 100, and he was over 100 years old. Okay, but you're right. Not taking away, but you have to understand the whole context.
Yeah.
Okay, we're not gonna. Okay, so but thank you for bringing that up from Yitzchak. Okay, so then he says, now we're talking about the question that we had about meged, that Moshe Rabbeinu uses the word meged, which means sweetness. Why does he use it only for Yosef? And why is it that from all the other times we have blessings in the Torah, it has nothing to do with this word meged is not used, only here. So he says that the same thing, the same thing we talked about before, that if a person has this midah, this attribute of that he is going to enjoy anything and everything that he can in this world, right? And then therefore he's going to end up having all the troubles because it's like a scale, right? So, but Yosef, on the other hand, when he puts himself totally in the realm of guarding himself in a constant basis and always thinking about Hashem, then he has that all what's left over. He already uses up all his troubles left over, all his tanug, all his enjoyment, right? So if we think about it, we say that it says over here, it says that what is the real tonic? What is the real enjoyment? Right? All the enjoyments that we have in this world is really something that it's very, very limited. It's for that moment that we have the chocolate bar. It's that moment that we have that, whatever it is we're having, it's just for that moment. Afterwards, we don't have it. We have a memory of it, but we don't have it anymore. But when it comes to an enjoyment, a real enjoyment, like the world to come, enjoyment of Torah, enjoyment of a spiritual thing, it lasts forever, right? And we have that is a whole different type of enjoyment. So therefore, if a person goes ahead and realizes where he takes that advantage of the guarding of himself in everything that he's supposed to guard, and he says, what is it that's going to make Hashem happy? Am I doing this now? Is it going to give pleasure to Hashem? Or because what I'm doing now is not going to be so pleasurable to Hashem? And he thinks about that always, that what I'm about to do, is that going to be, giving Hashem nachas ruach, right? Or not? And if I have that in my mind on a constant basis, then the pleasure will be true pleasure, right? And it's going to be a lasting pleasure. And it says that in the Medrash Tanchuma, and also the Zohar brings it down, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, "Ani asid lasei schar tov lemishu goder atzmo min avera." I'm going to be giving good reward to those who stop themselves, who guard themselves from sin, right? So Yosef, from his own, he gives, right? Because what happened to Yosef? Yosef guarded himself that his mouth shouldn't have anything from any enjoyment from the sin. So therefore, what happens when he comes out of the pit and he interprets Paro's dream? Paro says these words, right? And it's written in the Torah. It's not for nothing. It says the words are Al picha yishak kol ami, right? My nation will be fed through your mouth, right? Because he didn't let his mouth be enjoying from a sin, so therefore his mouth became the leader that fed the whole land, right? And then it says tzavar shalonena me'avera, right? He didn't let his neck have any avera, any sin. And then it says paro v'yasem paro rivitzav al tzavarav, that Paro put a golden necklace around his neck, right? And it says that his hands that didn't have part of the Vera, v'yaser Paro es tabato, that Paro took off his ring from his hand and gave it to Yosef, right? Everything, every single part. And it says that his body didn't have the enjoyment from the sin. Then it says, "Vayilbasho so big deshesh," that he adorned him with clothing of linen, which is a very expensive clothing. And also it's by his feet, it says, then he had the chariot, because he got on that chariot with his feet, because his feet didn't enjoy going towards the sin. He has this amazing chariot of the Mishnah Lamelech, of the viceroy of the king, right? So, and then it says that he didn't even let himself think a bad thought. So it says he becomes. They call him an abrech, which is a special term for a young man. That he had this special term adorned upon him because of the fact that he didn't let bad thoughts come to him. So these are the high levels that Yosef got because of the fact that he didn't let himself enjoy from the sin. And this is what this Parsha is telling us, that if a person does this, and if a Jew really is careful and he holds himself back, then he's going to have pleasure in every way possible. He's going to have all the sweetness and all the pleasures in the world. We should all be zocha to have all the pleasures and sweetness in the world and have Mashiach Tzidkenu and Meir V'Menu.
Amen.